Mr. Rypsee, what are we here
Okay.
for?
Well, you
What are we
said
here for?
we would come here to discuss the state of the ERLs and
Yeah,
view master and LEC teams.
yeah,
Basically, organizations, how the teams work in the current ecosystem.
exactly. Because we're, especially today, I don't think we're going to go in depth about single rumors, but just in the single day of today, we have seen very wonky ones, which are making me think that either some teams, let's say most teams, have no idea what they're doing with their off season,
Hmm.
or there have to be what some philosopher might say material conditions that are kind of uh, holding them back from taking reasonable choices.
Yeah, right now we're seeing a lot of influx of players that are coming into LEC. Like, if these rumors will become true, as well as if the rumor with Adam is indeed true that he has been bought as well by Fnatic, like. A lot of players coming from ERL leagues going into LEC directly
Mm.
mid year. So the transition from spring to summer off season, not the big off season in the winter, but the summer off season,
Yeah.
which is very very odd because normally players have contracts up until the end of summer. Yeah, so they do in ERL like most top teams or at least the top leagues. So you'd have things like Spain. Most of the teams there, things like France, Germany, do kind of their contracts for one full year instead of per split. There
Yeah.
are some teams in lower leagues that do per split, but the bigger ones usually do per year.
Mm.
Um, and
So
so
to
a lot of
clarify,
roster moves,
to,
yeah, a lot of roster moves happening in this off season, like in spring off season, or like summer off season, means that there's going to be a lot of buyouts coming into place
yeah.
because the teams need to buy them because these players are contracted for 6 more months. They're not waiting for the 6 more months to expire. Instead, they're investing now into him. And I don't know. It feels a bit weird to do this when, at least in Vitality's case, he replaced Agenda when he already wasn't necessarily a bad performer or he didn't have the talent to keep up. And they just take SLT, who, I don't know, like, yeah, sure, he's a promising player, but
Why now? Why by vitality?
yeah, I don't
And
know.
to start the rant, because I have a lot of rants to go on. What I really liked about LEC is that
Mhm.
during the last 2 years, maybe even three, before the franchising, as you said, the contracts were yearly, like from January to November, and many players have multi-year contracts from until like 2022, 2023, things
Yeah,
like that. Whereas ERLs have usually a contract that's 2 months long, plus a bonus extension in case they make EU Masters and they need to compete for further.
yeah,
So just when you would hope that the length of the contract would, let's say, trickle down, I hate the word, but let's say trickle down from LEC to ERLs, the opposite is happening. So instead of ERL contracts getting longer to make yearly plans, we have LEC contracts getting shorter to make split plans. What the fuck?
I mean, I don't think the contracts are getting lower in themselves. It's just that they're taking, like, for example, Sugenda's contract is not out. Like, either they have to pay. No, I don't know how his contract is written. So maybe it could have something like a clause to release a player,
Mm-hmm.
which the team has had to pay to him in case they want to release unilaterally, or Sugenda might want to say to leave the team anyway, or he might go to the academy and then his contract might change based on that because he gets kind of a demotion. Um, or I don't know, but the contract isn't necessarily getting shorter. Is that there's a lot of moves happening right now,
Mm.
like between spring and summer, which normally isn't the case because LEC teams have a thing that they have as an advantage. They play in a league that other players can't join just by skill. You can't join as a team in LEC. You have to make it into a franchise team. You have to make it into a roster. So you have to be scouted out and picked up by one of the LEC teams. There's no way for you to just go and play in a team and make it out there.
Yeah.
So that means that technically every ERL player can only play in LEC if he's given a chance. And as such, a lot of players would just join LEC instantly. Like, not the players that have already played, but players that are, I don't know, kind of newish, rookies that want to prove themselves. Because they don't care if they go on Vitality, if they go on Astralis, or if they go on Fnatic.
Yeah,
For them, it's the same thing. They get a chance
LEC,
to show themselves. Yeah.
which is positive, in my perspective, of a Astralis fan, because it means that we might get some good players just because.
Yeah, but the problem is you won't get them now because teams that have cheaper budgets don't want to invest in the buyouts. Teams that have higher budgets are willing to invest in these buyouts to buy out the contracts to be able to get the players. This is why it's weird for a lot of teams to do this. It's basically securing them before above every lower ender team, which I don't know if it makes any sense because normally you won't compete with them, you know. You're the best. You're a better team anyway. They would join you anyway at the end of the season, like the full season, the year. And instead, they could just wait up until the end of summer. And at the end of summer, you just comment them, and then you say, "Hey, what's up? You want to join LEC, mate?" Oh.
Yeah, and also there was, I believe it was Yoppa that was saying before this EU Masters, he said something like, "Playing in LEC isn't that special for a rookie. It isn't that great of an achievement to get to play in LEC for one split. You just need to be around for a while and be at a good, reasonable, good level."
Yeah,
it is like debatable, of course, but there's a lot of, especially bottom standings team that are just seem to be picking a bit of whoever they can get their hands on in a sort of green, meaning that they cycle through as many rookies as possible in the hope to find the bright star and try to build something around them.
Yep.
Which
isn't necessarily bad if you think about it, because you end up going through rookies and you end up giving them chances. The problem is, how do you evaluate whether a rookie did perform well, whether he or whether he can still perform better? Because the question doesn't come if the rookie performed good from his first split. Normally, he can't really do that. Like players like Elioya or Inspired are an exception. But generally, you won't be able to just outperform every single opponent in the LEC in your role in your first split.
Yeah,
because
like there's the only nobody. Please mention Caps. Caps was a generational talent. He was 1 in a million, and there won't be any other player like him in a long time. So you can't do this hoping to find the next Caps, because I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very unlikely that it happens again. So I'm gonna lift a complaining finger, because I'm saying, unless you find a generational talent like Caps, in that case you can be justified, but always in hindsight, never at the moment of making this choice. Unless you find a generational talent, why would you pick a player that has played only one split in ERL? I think if you're an LEC team, you should want for your team someone that has a good deal of experience, that has played at least minimum two splits in various ERLs. You can't take, like, if I'm Fnatic and I want to take my titles back, why would I pick a complete rookie?
I mean, the case for Adam is even weirder, but we'll go into that after I finish this.
Yeah.
After we finish the point on like agenda and to generalize it, but okay, let's assume this guy is just so good for ERLs that he just deserves to go in LEC first place. Yeah. Let's bypass the issues that might be in coordination with the team that arrives with any player that you might sign new on the roster. Let's look instead at kind of the player being developed? What if the player is developed to a point that they feel that he's going to be good enough for LEC? Or what if the issue is not necessarily to secure a good player now, but instead to secure the talent from possible opponents that might fight for him by showing interest into him earlier? Hence why they would actually move onto him now between spring and summer instead of waiting for summer to finish, for winter to come. I think this might be why they're doing this. And what I would have done is get SLT on the Academy of Vitality B and continue with Agenda on the main team, if I really wanted SLT earlier than before. But I assume he didn't want to do that, or Vitality just simply wanted to make sure he signs onto them instead of going for other options. Okay. Because we know Fnatic also was interested in SLT, and we don't know which one was the preference of Fnatic, Adam or SLT.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, I'm gonna be like a bit of a rude simplification, but it's essentially gambling.
Yeah, basically it's gambling. You're just flipping a coin and saying, I hope this guy pays off my scouting. If the scouting is done properly, but even then the data set is so small that I don't know if you can properly say the player would do that. It's like in blackjack, at the start of the game, you have more cards in the deck, less cards used, and so you gamble more at the start of the game compared to the end of the game, because as more cards go in, you can count them and you can know more specifically exactly what's going to happen.
But so do the opponents.
Yeah, so the opponents as well, and hence not necessarily you might win, but your opponents might win as well, and you might want to have a net positive on them, especially in the case with players now. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess we're just see regarding this kind of change. It's a rumor anyway. It's not necessarily confirmed, but yeah.
Yeah, we're using it as an excuse to talk about economy between teams in LEC and teams in ERL.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So we agree on the fact that the LEC teams are essentially gambling.
Yeah.
There are exceptions. There are exceptions, like notably two, which are Rogue, that forms their own talent through their academy, and they did it successfully with Inspired, with Larson, arguably with Finn, even if he didn't peak at the level that they wanted to. And maybe they're doing it again with Trimby. So Rogue, I absolutely love Rogue's model. And the other notable exception is, of course, G2, that doesn't bother interaction with ERL and takes renowned
player they have. That is very good.
Let's say from other teams in LEC, but it's actually just Fnatic, basically.
Recently just Fnatic, but what will be the next signing for G2? You get
actually the core of G2 was for a good period Rocket, because they had Yarnan and Wadid, Grabs and Yankos. Let me check if there are some players that have spent a reasonable amount of time in ERLs and they're still great. For example, I'm thinking about names like Mystiques.
But Mystiques is in the academy now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. If we were thinking last split, Mystiques was the prime example. Steelback. I'm thinking about Rooks. I'm thinking about Shiko. Players that have experience but are not necessarily just floating around whatever ERL.
Yeah.
Of course, then there are promising players. For example, what is it? I always mess them up. Seiken. Seiken is a good pick because he has experience and he is talented. He won EU Master just now. So Seiken would be a player that I would appreciate if some LEC team picking up.
He was on an LEC team.
Yeah, he was invited. Well,
he was in Vitality as a sub, technically.
Yeah. Then stuff happened, and I don't know how many LEC games he got to play.
I don't know. That was honestly really odd. I don't know if he got to play too many games. in Vitality. It was the which Vitality? It was the Cabochard Skeens kind of roster, if I remember properly, and then Comp Jackdaw, yeah. I don't know. The thing with Seiken is he probably wasn't good enough at that time. Because I would never understand you having a player in your own academy, seeing him develop, having the academy coach close to you, and still not being able to see his potential. Like, if he was that strong, either one, they had a wrong opinion of him, two, he was in the wrong team, because sometimes this happens. Different players react good or bad to different teams. Like, they meld easier with different teams with their playstyles, not only with the characteristics of the players, like the personalities. And Seiken just left. After he left Italy, he went to K-Corp, and K-Corp had the probably very good mentality, if like very good, how do I call it? Very easy to achieve cohesion with the rest of the team, and pretty much clear-cut, similar opinions on how to play the game. And hence, Seiken has a much easier time to play the game like this when the rest understand him or are able to make sacrifices for him. Compared to maybe when he was in Vitality Academy, that maybe didn't happen. Or in Vitality, maybe you want to try them out in some scrims. Again, it didn't happen. It's also something that might be a mental thing as well. Maybe Seiken have the trust in himself to do it. And then after he left Vitality because he felt like he wasn't good enough, he wanted to prove himself. And if you're doing that, you're going to be motivated to prove yourself. And so it wouldn't be odd that when he went to K-Corp, he wanted to just fair win it, you know?
Okay. I'll take the chance to go on a related but different rant, since I'm already like at the end of this beer already, as you can see. No, it's not beer, it's juice, it's juice, it's juice. Poland doesn't have alcohol.
What do you mean?
Just disclaimer in case Mr. Bezos kills the channel.
Yeah, this is all Pepsi right here.
Exactly. Fantastic cola. Best cola in Poland. They even dare to call it Coland, like straight away.
Oh my god.
That said, you talked about Academy being like not always the greatest model, and actually, when we put our minds to it, academies are a tragedy. So, let me explain. There is maybe 2 academies that fulfill their purpose. Their purpose being to take players which are moderately experienced and turn them into LEC players to then being integrated into the LEC main team. Okay, so in this context, I feel that Rogue, of course, and Schalke 04, they were the successful academies. We can talk about Misfits.
But Mad was also good as an academy.
Mad?
I feel like, yeah, Mad Lions. Mad Lions at a time when they had, what do you call him? Peter Dunn.
Peter Dunn, yeah. That's like, that worked more from their staff side than the player side, but it still was a very valuable asset to have because they shared experiences and they developed both teams at the same time. So yeah, it was in a different aspect, but also Mad Lions Academy worked. Good point. Other academies were successful in ERL context, like G2 Arctic as of recently, or Misfits Premier, which won a new Masters and did fairly well this time, but they never produced players that then the main team could take and perform at an LEC level. Fnatic Rising, Excel, maybe they won the region, maybe they did good placement in EU Masters, but then no players from there were promoted to LEC and did well. Good God, like think about this special.
Oh my god, what has become of Special, man?
Special is teamless. Special, like Excel.
No, he has a rumor. It's Easy Dreams.
Okay, I'm happy. I'm happy that Excel didn't fucking kill his career.
But I feel like it hurts the players a lot to have an unsuccessful stint in the LEC, disregarding how they will play from then on. Like, okay, you were to take special, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You went to Korea, you gave him a plastic surgery to change his face, the way he looks. You went to a scope country, you changed his name, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You made him play one split in Benelux. Then a team will pick him up from higher leagues. He will play there, and then you know what the next thing will be? In 1 year, he will go LEC because some team will want to get him.
Yeah.
Probably. Like it's so stupid that just because the player failed once, it means that he can't improve over time. It's as if when you hit LEC, they find your ceiling, and then that's it. There's no more, like, you don't grow after that. It's as if going back to ERLs, you're regressing, which isn't the case. It's not true.
Okay, so this, together with the decision that has been announced, well, not officially, but like leaked, let's say leaked, a couple of weeks ago, that most LEC teams voted in favor of disbanding their academies, makes me think that actually LEC teams don't have a really good scouting.
Yeah, I mean, you want me to tell you how managers do their work? Okay.
Here we go. We're in for a wild one. Thank God I have booze.
I'm gonna give you a small hint. All right. So go open a new tab on your browser. You type in the following letters. Yeah.
Mm.
You type L.
Wait
O,
a second. L
O L
Mm-hmm.
PRSBROS dot GG.
GG. Okay.
You press enter. You click. There's a button on the first bar, on the main bar, called ladders.
Ladders.
You click it.
Okay.
Click
I'm
it.
there.
Okay.
I think I know this side.
Yeah, you could have possibly done so. And now, bit by bit, you go by the players. If you're an ERL team, you might also maybe want to sort by region or by country. You know, maybe. But assuming you're an LEC team, you just go in and you look. Or a general ERL team that wants to get whatever a player, you don't need an LTR. Go in and you see upset. He has a team. I cannot get him.
Yeah,
Oh,
Fnatic.
Lapras doesn't have a team. Let's click on him. What do we see here? He's support main. 1.3k peak. Let's click on his OPGG. And you go on his OPGG, because you have all of them there. Yeah, or like most of them, not the secret accounts. And you see he's a bar main. So instantly you disqualify him. And you go to the next one. And you go check Mursa. Oh, Mursa!
I love the diss on Bard mains.
Yeah, I mean, it's a main in general. Oh, this guy is not a one-trick pony.
Ooh,
Fantastic.
Damn one icon must be a really good,
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. He was in SA he was Diamond 5, S9 Master, S2020 GM. He might look like a very promising player. I'm gonna look into him and see how he performs. Which basically I'm gonna translate from bullshit to English. How he performs means, is he winning his regional league? Is he playing at the very least decent compared to the other players in his role in that league? And did he get to like playoffs in EU Masters? That's all you need to look at.
Okay, this
You
reasoning
meet
doesn't.
all of these circumstances, this guy is a top prospect already, and it doesn't matter one bit what else you find there. Like, this guy is a top prospect. Like,
Okay, so this set of criterias looks like something I can. I am a very bad coder, very bad, but it looks like something I can code on a basic Python in 15 minutes.
one could say that, yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like I'm not going to say that managers do this like every time, but this is the literal first thing that a fan would do if you told him, find me the next talent for this team.
Yeah.
He would go to low pros, do the things that you listed, and then just like go on and repeat following the ladder. Which, by the way, changes weekly. So it's very different. It's very refreshing, and it doesn't look like you're doing the same things all over and over and over.
Yeah, I mean, like the problem doesn't come with the fact that you're using low pros to look for players. The problem is, how do you define what a good prospect would be and what would not be? Simply the fact that he's high elo or like has a lot of LP in Challenger, being like top 50, gives you a much bigger chance of being scouted if you're top 50. If you're not top 50, it's hard for you, or like let's say challenge general and then top 100 and so on, depending on the level of the team. It's very hard for you to get scouted out by teams, because they don't look at your gameplay. They only look at kind of your peak. So I'm gonna go into a personal rant here. So
go. I suppose that it's also even harder for coaches and analysts because they don't have an elo.
Yeah, no, coaches and analysts get by contacts. You either are lucky enough for someone to try out you and you give maybe your portfolio, and then they like it, or you get by contacts. You know someone that knows someone, and then he gets you in there. And then you perform well, you win once, and then it just goes from there.
So we plan to just drink stuff and go on without a structure, but we're actually putting in some very, big puzzle pieces. So we agree that teams are gambling. We agree that teams can't scout, in LEC at least, and that most ERL teams go on by contacts and not by proper scouting. So that's a lot of flaws that I'm starting to see here about these like ERL structure that everyone praises, which has its merits, and I'm not gonna deny them, but also it's very far from perfection, and there's a lot of room for improvement, which I like. According to what you're saying, it's not like improvement that is ungodly or hard to pull off. It seems very basic stuff actually, because coachability, every coach should know what coachability is. That's like a basic definition. I'm not a coach, but I am aware that if someone is coachable, that is a better intangible skill than playing the lane good in a good way.
Yeah, but they don't want to even bother with trying to do that. They find it that going for the safer option of someone who's less skilled but won't create any problems means that it's more likely for them to perform well. It doesn't matter for everyone to have this kind of strong player, because on SMS as well, we've taken a gamble when we took Namix. So his first split at SMS existed. Yeah? You remember. I don't know. I hope you remember that split.
Yeah.
Namix, we swapped him mid-split, for Nashik. The reason why we swapped Namix for Nashik wasn't because
No, it was spring 2019.
Yeah, spring 2019. First split SMS played after they bought Inferno.
Yeah.
So the reason why we got Nashik over Namix is not because of skill. Well, at that time, Namix was our best player, our best shot caller.
There's a bot coming.
But he had a problem with his mental. Yeah. And he created an issue so big that we had to replace him. I'm just going to say that. I don't want to go and kind of say it, because I don't know if I'm supposed to still after 2 years. But he created an issue so big because of his tilt, because of his mental, that it affected the rest of the team and the staff. Yeah. So bad that we had to swap him, even though he was our best player and our best shot caller at that time. But we decided to take a gamble with him when the spring split, and it didn't pay off. And it's okay. Going about how the scouting is done, because there's clearly like a lack of good scouters in the league. And
arguably
the ones who do scouting is for ERL teams is mostly the managers, but the managers have to scout, the managers have to negotiate contracts, the managers have to do that, head managers have to do, there's a lot of stuff that's going on that managers have to do.
There's like one I don't know to what extent it is a problem, but one I think pretty great problem is that managers don't usually know a lot about the game itself, about the technicalities, but then it's them who are judging at least the first impression on players that they have to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of people. Okay, I'm speaking from like not experience, but I know stories from Italy, but also other regions, like LCS, for example, that managers just like coordinate things and organize stuff around, but when it comes to knowing the game and being able to judge a player, that's when the shortfalls are coming, and it shows when they do scouting and when they build a team. Because they end up building a team that they think it will work great because they have good names, but that they don't because there's some intangibles that they are not evaluating correctly that end up fucking breaking everything.
I mean, you can't evaluate everything about a player just by looking at him, just by watching him play. You need to have them somewhere where you can watch him closely, like not even tryouts, because tryouts are 2 days, 3 days. Yeah, it's not enough game time to see him, how he will develop with the rest of the team. Like in regards to his cohesion with the rest of the team, in regards to how he gets along with them. Like it's so hard to evaluate properly a player if you haven't watched them for a longer period of time and you have knowledge about insights of the team and how he developed or how he performed.
And you want to try out as many players as possible during a short period of time, which is the off season, so you don't have the material time to delve into these details.
Yeah.
From Hilisoni Une that says, do you think that if it was still possible to promote to LEC, then teams would invest more into scouting? So this hits one of the major points of the franchising, which is teams in ERL build their rosters to win EU Masters, to form good players that then promote into LEC, and then what? What do they get out of it? What are they forming good players out of? Because if there is zero chance that a team, no matter how great, how it becomes, how good it performs, how lit their roster is, there is no way that they will be able to retain their rosters. At some point, some LEC teams will snatch their players, and that's inevitable.
There is one way that could happen, and that's a sponsorship that you find once you enter the LEC. And so you kind of make a deal that with sponsors saying, I go into LEC, you sponsor me for a huge amount of money, and we can basically become a brand inside the LEC and maintain our players and then stay there for a couple of time until we get a solid foot into it, and then we hopefully stay here for a longer time. Problem is that because you can't then demote, then the sponsors are obviously less likely to want to invest into you.
Yeah, they will be conservatives.
Yeah, because maybe the brand that they're invested in will just go off then, and that's poor investment by them.
Yeah, of course, because unironically, if I am a sponsor, why would I choose to invest in Carmine Corp, which is one of the most successful ERL teams of recent times? Why would I invest in them more than in Fnatic, which is a historical brand and will probably never die?
You're someone that has a brand that's popular in France or wants to become popular in France, and hence you attack the fan base of K Corp, which is mostly French people. That's why.
Okay, so yeah, there needs to be some conditions that make it sensible to do so.
Yeah.
And that is like already cuts off a very large amount of ERL teams. Because, yeah, maybe some French teams, maybe some German teams, which incidentally are two of the countries that have larger populations, so let's say larger markets available, and that will make sponsorship valuable. Because if you say the same about, I don't know, Portugal or Latvia, that becomes infinitely more unlikely. By the way, I managed to open the vodka, so the juice, this is apple juice, so to you.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, I don't know. This is why the franchising came in. Franchising came in because league wasn't stable, and they wanted to attract sponsors faster, and they wanted to make a system in which the teams that are inside the league get paid the money, and the money can't get out, because once the team gets, let's say, paid inside the league, they make it into LEC, yeah, and they stay there for 1 year. They get paid for 1 year, whatever it is that the contract says. And then what if they demote? They take the money with them. The money doesn't reshuffle inside the league. The money gets out of it. And hence the power of the league diminishes with each and every team that does this. And this will continue to happen on and on and on. So teams can just come in, get some money, get some brand exposure, and then get out, and then, move into something else, and then they stay with the money there. And it's not good for the LEC overall. So they need to do this to be able to attract more sponsors, to be able to keep the money where it is, and to be able to give the team some safety as well, such that they would invest more as well. Like, they would make more bets, they would make more gambles.
Okay. This is a very it's a new point of view for me. This money doesn't get out. So thank you for this approach. But yeah, so in this sense, this model would works well to keep the LEC stable, and that I personally don't like franchising, but I admit there are positives, and one is what you mentioned. So this automatically brings us to ERL teams need to do something better.
Yeah. But what is it that they can do better?
Yeah, there's very, very little margin of improvement, I think.
Yeah, because they can't get into LEC. The primary, it wouldn't be an issue if their leagues would be watched by more international viewers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they would be able to kind of sustain themselves as well, But they, the regional leagues in themselves get viewed only by mainly regional people. Sometimes people from outside come. But let's say a lot of people watch France because it's the best league. But what about leagues like EBL? Mostly Balkan people watch them. Mm-hmm. Coaches watch them, maybe scouts watch them, or managers, whatever.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know, personal experience. Gabo was playing there last played, so I watched some games.
Yeah, that as well. That can happen as well if you have a player from your league there that maybe you want to see how he does. But this doesn't mean that the viewership will increase for the leagues necessarily. It would only do that for a couple of time, for 1 split, 2 splits, and then decrease again. And it doesn't create sustainability for the teams. What was the point I was trying to get to? Wait. Damn it. Anyway,
I won't be the one reminding you because I'm drinking.
Yeah, it's not sustainable enough for these teams to invest that much money because they can't make it into LEC. The exposure that LEC gets is because it's the primary league. Everything concentrates from League of Legends Europe to give exposure to the LEC, to the teams inside the LEC, but the teams also have to do something themselves. Because teams like Astralis or teams like SK or Vitality don't do that much. It's because they choose not to do that, and it's their own fault. Teams like G2 do a lot of it. Teams like Fnatic do a lot of it. Mm-hmm. Teams like even Rogue and Alliance don't do that much of it. Schalke does a lot of it as well, and that's very good because they become a very love team inside the LEC just because of it, and also their personalities and stuff. Yeah, but ERL teams don't get to have that because League of Legends Europe doesn't help them grow. They don't have something to help them grow. They need to grow themselves, which is hard, takes time, and it's basically kind of the old model that was used, with no one helping them except their own kind of small community. Also, second thing is you invest, yeah? What are you going to invest in? You're going to invest in players, you're going to invest in infrastructure, you're going to invest in stuff. That's kind of it, yeah?
Okay, so this is a good question that you pose, which is how do I diversify my investment? Okay, players, staff, infrastructure, scouting, even whatever.
Yeah, media, whatever.
Content is a good point as well. So yeah, like I have seen how Italy evolved in the last 3 years, where most teams, and I'm saying 97.5%, invested in players. And they, I'm not going to say failed, because some of them won, some of them did well in new masters, and they're not around anymore.
Yeah.
So overall, not being around, I consider it as failure. So first off, I would, if I was a team manager, I would invest in infrastructure and content and in players, not in a way that means taking good players because I want to win the split, but taking players that are willing to stay with my team for a long time, that are dedicated to improve themselves and the team over a time frame that is longer than one split.
But there's a problem with that. You can't, especially in a very small community, to try to obtain the big part of the popularity of the viewer, without actually performing. Yeah. Because if Fnatic wasn't performing any time for the past, I don't know how many years, people wouldn't like them. They wouldn't have as many fans. G2, the same applies to them. If G2 wasn't the strongest team in Europe, there wouldn't be as many fans of the team. People become fans of them because they're the strongest team and they want to win, and that resonates with them. If you do that and you invest only into infrastructure and into the staff and into training the players, good, you get some players, you train them, you hopefully keep them. Guess what? You're never going to keep them. They will always go to A, where someone pays more money, B, somewhere where they can get more exposure, C, an opportunity to join the higher tier teams. And so assume, for example, like SMS or Machko gets, for example, a very good sub player, builds him up. Yeah? What happens next? Do you think he's not going to leave SMS or Machko for, say, Giants or Movistar Riders or BIG? No, he will always leave. If he gets an offer from that, he will always leave. Here comes the second point. These players have contracts per split or per year. But once, even if it's per year, once the year ends, what is going to happen? He's free on contract. He can go anywhere for free. All the money this org invested into him is out. And unless they manage to get more money via what he did during the time, then it doesn't mean much. Well, because they basically didn't get that much out of it anyway. It's anyway a losing situation right now for ERL teams. But either way, you lose money because you could have had him on contract and done what happened to Adam, for example, where KC simply sold him to Fnatic for some money. They developed a player, but they won a large sum of money for him, which wouldn't happen if these transfers would happen at the end of the year. Especially because in ERLs, as I said, contracts are per year. Sometimes only some players get per 2 years, but that's it. Maybe academies, maybe. You know? And so what do you get if you just do that? Nothing. Your players will get stolen. You won't win because you're developing, yeah? Other orgs can just come in, put money in one split, win it, boom. They get more brand exposure than you will. And this will happen on and on and on and again.
Okay, so this is a recipe of lose-lose, actually.
Yeah.
Because it actually, so if you're trying to do what I'm saying, which is like preparing on the long run and trying to build up, you will lose in the short term. But if you do the opposite, which is win in the short term, getting more wins, win the split, go to EU Masters, get more exposure, have the strongest player and more fans, then you will lose in the long run because you're wasting money. Well, wasting. You're investing more money for a less return, and then you have to do it over and over for every split after because you're not building anything. You're resetting every split. So it's a lose-lose.
It's a lose-lose regardless of what you do. You have to balance it out and lose the least amount possible. Sorry. So it's not exactly like you can win in this. You just lose less, and the aim is to lose less. And you would ideally need to balance between these two. Now, I mean, if you were, of course, sponsored by a wealthy Chinese guy that had
you just
money,
like,
then it wouldn't matter. You could just
just go on.
And then you create your brand, just like Casey maybe did, or like BDS trying to do right now as a strong team, and you want to go into LEC, and then because eventually LEC will expand, and that's what ERL teams are fighting for. They're fighting for to prove that they want to compete in LEC because they are always striving to be the best in EU Masters, always in their regional leagues. They do smart investments, and so on and so forth. But they have a lot of fans as well that come with them because they win.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what ERL teams are fighting for. Their attempt to just try to go into the LEC via expansion or replacing a team.
So they're trying to prove that they are the big fish in the small pond, in the hope that the other pond, which is LEC, will expand and take them in.
Exactly, yeah. KC, Giants, Movistar, but there's still a stepping stone from that. It's the academy that allows you to go into LEC as an idea, or you're an academy team, and you as an academy team obviously will not lose your player, maybe lose your players to other LEC teams. But generally they will go maybe and stay in your own system. But if you're other teams that are not academies, then those players can just go to an academy to try to attempt to go into LEC easier, if they feel like it would be easier that way. And so if K-Cup, for example, would be on academy, they might give their players, or they might have just promoted some of the players to the main team, which we see happening in maybe Rogue, when they promoted Inspired, as an example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On Medlines, when they promoted Yaoya. But if you're K-Corp, you try to hold on to these players, but you're not going to be able to do it for much longer. Like, assume your buyouts are high enough, that the teams won't get the players. You will keep them for another split, and then next split, they'll try to find, obviously, maybe another home in LEC or in high-tier academies that want to win, giving them a chance to perform better, giving them a chance to go into LEC, replacing their counterpart in the LEC team, assuming he obviously does bad. So, yeah, obviously, Seiken, if given the opportunity to go to Vitality again, I wouldn't say he would refuse.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So.
Gonna answer shortly to the chat. You invest in infrastructure, then Carmine Corp comes and wins EU Masters without a gaming house. Okay, so yeah, of course, that is probably an exception, but I'm gonna argue, for the sake of argument, that infrastructure doesn't necessarily mean a physical space. Having a team psychologist is also infrastructure. Having I'm gonna say something fancy, but like having team experiences outside the rift or outside the scrims is infrastructure. Going outside to a fucking park, to a I don't know, how is it called? Roller coaster. Yeah. To what is it? Escape house, escape room.
Escape room?
Yeah. Escape room. Yeah, like activities, that is content is infrastructure in a broader sense. We see barely any team invest in infrastructure unless it goes tremendously viral, like Kick with the Pookie style picture, or Carmine Corp with the blue wall picture, unless it's something that gets incredibly viral, very few teams actually commit to content, which is understandable because content you actually need to think about it, to plan it, to craft a storyline, and so on, which I'm a sucker for, but I realize that not many people are willing to put in the effort, very well knowing that the return isn't going to be that much. But I'm also biased because in Italy there are less fans than compared to other leagues, so making content is probably less worth than other leagues. If you're a French org and make content, you're gonna have to have some fans. Someone is bound to follow you at some point. Even if you're like 10th place and if you have a fun video weekly, someone is going to watch you. Few people, but still non-zero. If you're in Italy and if you're like top half and you do a very fun content, it's still very hard that someone follows you because of that content.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a really bad looking like situation for all URL teams. Mm-hmm. But they can just sustain themselves until that comes, or they invest less and hence their losses are so small that they don't care, and or they just try to make it big. Either one of these happen. But ideally, anyway, with the current system, no ERL team can at any time outperform what an LEC team normally does. In terms of financial structure, in terms of anything, just because of the insecurity that is offered to the ERL team compared to the LEC team, and the fact that they just cannot get into the higher tiers of play where they can get more exposure and more fans. Okay. And that's just simply it.
Also adding, of course, what Hilisoni you comment in the chat, the time is also a problem because when you craft a content with an ERL player, then their contract runs out and they hop into a different team. So yeah, that's also so.
That's why you try to use some players as kind of your branding, and this is what Giants did with Attila as well. Besides him being good, like besides Attila being a monster and sign MVP, and as a general player, you also keep him for a long time because he's your brand. Him and Antonio are Giants brands.
Yeah,
and that's why you can do just get a player and get him with your own brand. But if you're a small team, you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
S2V doesn't get to do that because no matter who S2V might be able to get,
E-Monkeys. That is like the epitome of unremarkable team that I can think of in LVP.
Yeah, E-Monkeys. No matter who you are, you won't be able to build a brand player with your team because one, if he's your brand player and he's that good, then he wouldn't be with your team in the first place. Second of all, he would immediately leave given the opportunity to either the Academies in LVP, Giants, Movistar, caught for second, even fucking Betis, even like most of the teams he would just leave for them. Like G2 Madrid, Movistar, Giants, UCOM, Betis, like he would just leave for these. Why? Because it's much easier for him to then get more exposure or get better teams. Get better teams means maybe play better means a cycle repeats, and hence he just has to win from it.
Yeah, of course.
Stays with the Monkeys. The Monkeys doesn't have money to build a good roster once. The team performs poorly. This guy is thinking, he was a one-time shot. It just happened to be good that time. Because that's how people value him.
No player. Of course, let's say rightfully so, they think, let's say selfishly sounds like a bad word, but of course if you commit a lot of time into your career as a player, of course you can't allow yourself to be stuck on a low team that pays you little, because once you're committing a lot of time, maybe even skipping university to put time into league, staying in a lower tier team will never be worth it. You always want to jump higher and eventually maybe even reach LEC, but not necessarily, since there are like good ERLs that you can stay at the top of, like LFL, like Prime League, and you can say, okay, maybe I will never get to LEC, but I can make a living out of staying in this league for as much as possible, basically. And the core that we hit is that LEC teams are shifting all their costs on forming, developing, and ultimately keeping their players. They're shifting it onto ERL teams through the franchising model. So the franchising model strips them out some of the negative externalities that come from this business, and they're dumping it on the ERL teams.
Yep, exactly. In order for the Super League to exist in Europe, the teams that are not in it must have a hard time or a harder time compared to them. We'll take the shit from what LEC teams basically do. No matter what happens, that will happen. There was the scandal with the Super League in football. The same would have happened there. If they were to do that, the same would have happened.
Yeah.
Big teams would eventually, everyone would shift to the Super League to watch it, and then the smaller teams would get left out. And then we'll see a lot of teams disband, and a lot of teams just try to get into the Super League once they get extension. The very same thing would happen, no matter what. And it's not bad for the strength of the region. It's not good for the health of organizations that would still invest into it. Because right now, a lot of players are starting to ask more money, more salary from teams. On general, on average, like the average player would ask more money than he would 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, because the scene is growing, so are the salaries and so on.
Come to a point where orgs will realize that they can't handle the costs of running a team, and they would much rather disband.
By the way, this seems, there are rumors, so I'm not gonna say confirmed anything, but this seems to be happening in Italy. Seems.
Yeah, I've heard about it as well. I don't know what I feel very badly about it, but it's just what it is. If
they're like, okay, we spent a certain amount of money to run this split, we achieved some results, but we're not getting back as much as we're putting in.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense for us to stay, so we're leaving.
You know what's weird? I've heard that one team that didn't do that well last split is starting to invest even more this split to build a super team. So for Italy at the very least, and they are doing this to win the split. And the same thing that the other teams did beforehand, basically. And now the team that we're talking about that is doing that, kind of trying to retreat from the league. I don't know. It's like you see what they did and you think it's going to go different. It is not happening once. It's happening a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's on and on again.
Cyclic, sorry.
Yeah.
God, NLC is such a mess. Like...
NLC is a fucking mess. NLC
like sometimes I get sad about Italy because we have our problems, but then I remind myself that NLC exists, and I'm like, well, could be worse.
I don't know what's like. NLC has 2 academies, and then the rest of the team just
yeah. Okay, so like NLC, we talked about some problems about ERLs, but NLC has like one more layer of problems, which is that on top of all these reasons that ERL teams have not to invest long term, NLC teams don't even have the bonus of investing short term because they are guaranteed they will never win.
Yeah.
There's BTXL, there's Fnatic Rising. There is no way then Tricked, what is it, Nordavind, or I don't know what other teams,
The orgs
Singularity.
are not that rich compared to what you see in other leagues.
Yeah.
These orgs are simply not that rich. I don't know what they're doing that they're not getting investment. They're literally people not investing into them. Either that, or I don't know what they do with the money.
So like
Because
I have spent a lot of time, in Finland, and I know that in that country, and probably at least even in Sweden, not sure about Norway, but I'm pretty sure in Sweden as well, the general economy is pretty helpful towards startups. Teams are startups in this sense. So you need to have an initial investment, quote unquote, gamble on something that might or might not pay off, and then you can get larger or fail. But in general, Finland and Sweden are pretty good at enabling startups and making sure that if you fail, you don't fail that bad, and they provide you with a lot of help and insurances and safety nets so that you are encouraged to start your startup. So
yeah,
in Finland and Sweden, the economic environment of the countries should be actually a blessing for esports.
yeah, should be, but they can't compete on the same level
Yeah,
regarding player salary. Like, yeah, it can
yeah. The
help.
cost of life is also higher, of course.
Yeah, yeah, but it's like the other orgs outside are richer, and hence they can afford those better LEC, NLC players like UK and Nordic more than these orgs can afford them anyway. And even with this help from government and whatnot, it still doesn't manage to, because it's a bit weird. But the fuck? I heard a sound in my room. The Finnish team, which is Kova Esports, yeah, and it was Ense before, but Ense,
Yeah, they quit after
yeah,
one split, I believe.
yeah, because they realize they can't compete with it. You get Finnish players to get a Finnish team, then it doesn't work.
Yeah,
So
you suck. You just suck.
yeah, so you need to invest into more Nordic players. So it's a lot of different nationalities. I don't know. It's just the point that you don't have enough money to compete with the government help. And UK in general is the orgs from UK are very, very shit. In general, they're very, very shit. In the sense that there were a few UK orgs that were good, and one of them was Excel. And I'm trying to think about.
So if I'm sorry, but like if Excel was the good one,
Yeah, Excel was always a good kind of one. Another one would have been
just
M&M.
imagine the others.
Yeah, and then I would say, no, these are kind of it. Yeah, these were the good orgs from UK. There's no other good orgs that want to invest a lot, because the people making these orgs, the owners, are not rich people or people that have rich investors. It's just random people, average persons that want to create a team just because they're passionate about it. But that doesn't win you tournaments and whatnot. Not when you play with the big leagues with the big players, you know.
Yeah, of course.
So
Like I love. So I'm not a fan of capitalism in general, so I will never say that being rich is the quality that you need to enter esports. I will always cheer for the team of friends or for the passionate guy trying to get into it. But we're in a stage of esports, which I call third stage. Like first stage is what I call that teams are just going in group of friends, just competing and going as far as they can. Second stage is where there starts to be some infrastructure and maybe salaries, maybe contracts, and the third one is where you need to have some form of sponsor, venture capital, or big someone that puts in money for you. Otherwise, you will not be able to float about. So we're kind of into the third phase of esports in this mental scheme that I have. So yeah, we're in that place where this kind of model of friends just going on and competing cannot work, and it happens only in, I don't know, Baltics or EBL maybe,
Yeah,
where you
somewhat.
which are like, especially
It
for
depends.
Baltics, they're less
ABL has a
developed than you.
few, has still a few of those teams remaining. So it really depends. Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, NLC is the only one that really shows that what you technically can get in player talent, you can't still make up for it and be able to contest the best teams, because even if the best teams are undertaking all your Nordic players in general are sought throughout the ERL ecosystem, and then there's a lot of Nordics that go to Italy, for example. They prefer it there because one, it gives them a chance to go to Masters, more brand exposure, and if they and probably better salaries depending on what team they would have in the NLC. And then it's simply the orgs not willing to invest a lot to try to compete with the academies because they know it's pointless, kind of in that sense.
Yeah, they have no reason to. They would have to invest a massive amount, and even if they cannot perform academies, the return is very little.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, what you said about these NLC market being closer because of the Nordic leagues, because of the Nordic countries, yeah?
Yeah.
It's not completely true because there's rivalries between them. Yeah, brands do exist.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to, for example, go you tune onto a player, yeah, and you're Italian. I don't know, who do you hate? Who does what nationality nationalities do Italians hate in general?
Okay, so we cannot compete, but let's say French.
French. Okay. Say for example you had some French players in your league,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and you would do that, and you would have a team of say 3 French players, but you're an Italian org.
Mm-hmm.
Would you cheer for that team, knowing that just the fact that pure French teams will come in and be your team, you having Italians? Would you do that? And then ask the question not for you, but for the average fan.
The average fan will probably, of course, never cheer for the French team.
Yes, exactly. And as such happens in there because, yeah, it's Denmark, it's Sweden, it's Norway, and it's Finland, but they're not necessarily that on getting that along too well. Maybe you have someone from Sweden and Norway, and then your brand that's a Swedish team maybe doesn't transfer too well into the Norwich fan to the Norwich.
Norwich.
To the fans from Norway, just because.
To the fans from Norwich, it's a town in UK, right?
Yeah, because they don't simply like you. They don't want the whole. They're from Norway. They're not Swedish. You know, they like their own. It's nationalism that comes in. It's always happening, especially in Europe when we have football being our primary sport. So that will always happen, and that's also the problem with NLC. The fact that their rivals are so close together, and it's hard for everyone, for Norway, for fans from Norway to cheer for Swedish players, for example, or to cheer for Swedish orgs. So
yeah,
that happens all the time. And also, I guess they don't find investors, along with the fact that they're even more fragmented. The fact that they have UK in it as well. So UK investors want to invest because you're investing in the Nordic market, and then Nordic ones maybe like to invest in the Nordic market, but they don't want to invest in the UK one.
Yeah,
not that the UK one was big any time, or that would matter for that regard, because we all know how UKLC was before.
Yeah, it was like similar, very similar to Italy. Very few fans.
No, it was worse. It had 1K viewership. Italy had 2-3K all the time at average, if it was in a bad spot.
Yeah. Actually, true. Yeah, you're right.
Watching UKLC with 200 viewers was depressing. Completely because just absolutely no way to grow the scene. Because UK is not interested in esports. Let's go on with it to a real point. UK is not interested in esports at all. Yeah. The fact that Excel made into a league is a miracle by itself. The fact that UK org made it, and it's only a testament to how strong and dominating Excel was in the UK scene beforehand, to be able to gather kind of all the UK fans and be able to make it into the Super League. But UK has never been the type to be very competitive in kind of electronic sports. The reason behind that is because they're more casual. Consider them something like NA, where NA preferred console games over PC games, hence not being able to be as competitive, except fighter games.
And that's not like, no matter what you do as an esports team, you won't be able to change that.
Yeah.
Or even Riot itself won't be able to change that.
Yeah.
That is more or less the same with Italy, because Italy has a lot of league players, like casual players.
Yep.
But negative interest in esports. There's like, compared to the amount of people that plays the game, there is such a small percentage of esports followers. It's actually unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know. They just simply don't care. I don't know if it's because you need to make it. It might also be because of the parents and how they view esports and how they view gaming as well. It might
That's
be
a
the fact,
component for sure.
yeah, it might be the fact that they're more casual, maybe more outgoing persons that prefer to invest time into something that's not indoors, something that Nordics are the opposite of, which they spend a lot of time indoors because of it, because of the cold weather in Italy. It's always hot, or it's normally a good weather, and hence they spend less time indoors, more time outdoors.
Yeah,
Hence,
and if
less
it
time.
didn't improve with the quarantine, when like, what other condition there could be that better than quarantine to get people to watch esports? I can't think of any. So if it didn't improve in quarantine, I'm saying that it will probably never get better.
Yep. So I don't know. Italy just needs to change the way they view things, or how much they are willing to invest into making this be seen on normal media, like the national media, and that might be able to change their opinions of the next generations, and then that might happen. But it's
Okay.
not 100% certain anyway.
So I don't have a 100% confirmation, but talking a bit with the people inside PG, and looking from the strategies that the teams have adopted since the reformation of the LTR League,
Yeah.
they're basically not going to care about Italian audience, and they're just trying to grow into a good league that everyone can follow, like LVP, like LFL, like Prime League. So Europeans, despite the foreign language cast, will follow because they're a good league and not because they're Italians. So in principle, that would be a good idea if it was not for the fact that orgs are kind of running out of money.
Yep. That would be it basically. This system will sustain itself as long as orcs have the money, but they'll eventually go out a bit, and they'll go to more cheaper budgets, and then people will lose interest once Italy performs poorly again. Because at one point in time, Italy was at the level, like the bottom 4 leagues. Greece was better than them. At one point, for sure, there were basically all the other leagues better than them, except Baltics, except such leagues. And as such, it's just a race against the clock until Italy goes back to that point. Either that, or the orgs would accept to lose money for the sake of keeping the brand alive, the league alive, until it becomes popular enough to be able to stay off of that. But I don't know. It's just problematic anyway. How much how much money would you invest as an Italian, as a person from another nationality, like say from Europe but Nordic, into an Italian on merge from Italian teams? Not that much, I would say. Would much rather invest in something more local.
Merge from Italian teams. So I don't even know if Italian
If that
teams.
would exist, supposing in the future it goes from that, there won't be able to be a solution for Italian teams, so Italian teams have to choose a different way. But I don't know what that would be. Content creation in Italian wouldn't be fine. So that's not good. It's a bad problem that might be able to find a solution in the future. Maybe PG has a solution, has a plan. I'm not entirely certain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me neither.
But it could work technically to sustain itself for a period of time. But what after that? Because I don't know. Eventually, the bubble will pop. It just depends on how much time are we talking about here.
The only sustainable way is trying to cooperate with organizers and other teams and try to develop the local scene and the market while keeping or even growing your share of the market. But then it's more rational to let other teams to do this and just free ride on a growing market, which leads to a textbook case of market failure. So it's not exactly the same thing. I don't know if my drunk mind is thinking correctly, but I think something like this is happening with the G2 and LEC in a way.
Yeah, because the others are riding G2 success. I mean, it's normal to do this because it's an easy.
It's like both ways. Other teams are riding on G2's success, and G2 doesn't have to develop players and invest on formation because other teams are doing that.
Yeah, and it's an okay thing to do, considering G2 will have the money and the investment to be able to keep on going with their strategy of building teams. And the other teams as well continue with that and don't change the G2's approach to the market, because if they do, then G2 will have a direct contender on the market to that.
So yeah, okay, so me by myself, being a leftists in general, I would love that the teams of a said league, any league, you can take any league, I would love that the teams sat at a table and said, okay, let's put a salary cap on players. Let's all develop players for 2 splits. No one is going to take any great players. Everyone is going to pay a right amount of salary. Everyone is going to focus on development, and no matter who wins, our collective objective is to develop players for the future. It takes just one team to ignore this and just build a super team to fuck everyone over.
Yep.
So it will never happen. As much as an idealist leftist I can be, I am aware that this is not a viable strategy because there will always be one asshole team to fuck everyone over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it will happen because they have the opportunity to do it. Why struggle to build and fail to do it when you can just buy the players that others build for you? It's not even just buy. You can just find the opportunity to get them for free as well because of the way contracts work in League right now compared to traditional sports. Just wait. His contract expires. Say, yo, want to come to us? We'll pay you, I don't know, more than the
200 euros more. It's like you don't need even like absurd amount of money because it's ERLs.
Yeah, 500 euros more for ERLs. Just do that. Yeah, you join us, and we also build a very good roster. This is important. Everyone wants a good roster.
Yeah.
So when you hear that as a player, like, oh, they're building a good roster, they will pay me more than the previous team. I'll be likely to win the league. I'll be likely to develop more as a player because I'm surrounded by better players. I'll get more exposure as well. It's only wins. Come on, why would these players? They'll be stupid to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as Neutral says in the chat, This thing will never work, of course, because unless there are strong limits to the league rule set, then no team will follow any of this reasoning. It's Riot that should put a very narrow set of rules, because of course other teams are never going to be able to stop the one team that breaks the quote unquote agreement. It's the tournament organizer that has to come from above. And in this sense, I feel that Riot actually has the power to make wildcards or any minor region, be it ERLs or wildcards, yes, not sustainable, but like more manageable to afford to thrive. And I'm not sure that they're doing that. I'm gonna quote, for example, Dota scene. In
Mm-hmm.
Dota, they don't really have the distinction between major regions and wildcards. But there was like South America. There was like, imagine Japan in league. Okay, they always sucked. They always did poorly. They had a limited amount of spots, and they always got last or second to last place. So
Mm-hmm.
negative success. So instead of just fucking kicking them like League did with Oceania, Valve unexpectedly gave them more spots. And in 2 years' time, because I think that happened in 2018, in 2 years, 3 years' time even, a South American team got sixth place in a major tournament.
Okay.
So I'm not saying, so this, you know about data. So this is just like one, let's say, measurement. It's like one example. It's not consistent. You can't build a consistent theory behind it. You can say it works every time, but it seems that going the counterintuitive approach of giving more to a league that is struggling will actually help them grow.
I mean,
Puzzling, I know.
the the problem with that is, think about ERLs and you give Baltics one main stage spot
Yeah.
or something like that, or give them one more seat in the plains. That wouldn't change. Like, maybe it happens for the very best in the world. If you were to compete at the World Championship, and it's like, okay, you can give Oceania more spots, maybe that would change something, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in League, especially in ERLs, that isn't the case because there's a limit to the amount of exposure you can get in
Yeah.
general. And giving them more spots doesn't solve the issue of them not having either enough talent or not being able to keep the talent, or
Mm-hmm.
not being able to have enough money to be able to rely on players from outside.
Okay. Just to give a benchmark, I read today that yesterday's match between Pain Gaming and Istanbul Wildcats,
Yeah,
where there was only one renowned player, which was BRTT,
yeah,
that match was seen by 940,000 K people.
yeah.
That is more than LEC finals. So that is a
Yeah,
stupid amount
because
of
it
people.
doesn't matter. It matters that it's an international tournament. Everybody wants that.
Yeah.
Everybody expects that. You can get to where you get a lot, but that's it. Like, and for ERLs, it doesn't happen. It
Yeah.
happens only at the biggest stage. So only worlds. So only we're talking about regions here. And you give more spots to Oceania at Worlds. Instead of doing that, I assure you, in 2 years, nothing will change, because the best players from Oceania will prefer to go to NA because there's better salaries there, I don't know how it works in Dota, but in Dota it's not about salaries, it's about winnings from tournaments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that I don't know about Dota economic structure.
Yeah.
So
I don't know either about, but I know for sure that Dota has a much bigger prize pool and hence they have lower salaries.
yeah,
Because the teams there maybe they're not that hard, like that professional, or they're not that investing into Dota. Instead, they get it from the winnings of the team.
yeah, it's like more, it's like a tournament structure more than a championship one. So the teams have different strategies to go by.
Yeah, exactly. And so if that team was to be, if a team from Oceania was to succeed, then it would require simply to for the players to realize, oh, it doesn't matter if I go to NA, the salary is likely the same. I also have to move to North US, blah 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 blah. I can just do this in Oceania if we just train better. But this way, an Oceanic player would see, but I can go to NA, I can fight for a spot. Like a lot of Oceanic players have gone. I can fight for a spot in the main team, and I also get better salary in the academy than I would get on the main team in Oceania.
Yeah, so
And it's all about the money that you can earn as well. You're gambling a few years of your life on being able to have enough to go by afterwards, because then you have to go back to studying or you have to go back to business. Either of these two are the options that you can go for, or you go into coaching and whatnot. Brazilian Turkish market isn't really comparable with Baltics or Balkans. Yeah, that as well.
True.
But listen,
yeah, this is like hardly mimicable to the European regional league system because, of course, it's less developed.
yeah, but it will stay developed so long as the market won't grow in that region, and the market has to grow organically in order for it to be fine. It cannot grow unorganically. It cannot grow by what an organizer can do. It doesn't have an effect in 2 years, 3 years like it does for Dota, for example. For the South American teams, it needs to grow organically. That doesn't happen in 2 years. It doesn't happen in 3 years. It happens in generations. I don't know. This is not a thing that we can solve, or
No,
that
no,
can.
it's like just we're like acknowledging that it exists, and then of course we would need a very fat economic background, or I don't know, organizational managerial background to know the inner workings of these dynamics to even attempt solving them. We don't.
Yeah.
I personally don't have any of it, so I'm just like staring at the problem, trying to explain you and convey it to you. But then there's nothing that we can do, and the best we can do is hope that someone at Riot has noticed this and is starting to put together pieces that eventually will solve it, or at least put a patch on it.
But they don't care about ERLs. Riot
Yeah.
doesn't care about it.
Yeah. Yes, that can be shown from something as trivial as the format
Yeah.
for you masters. So if they cared about it, they would have implemented these tentative fixes even before that the EU masters came into being.
Yeah.
That is
So-
like something in esports that really stinks, is that everything is kind of done on the fly and there's way less planning that a normal environment would do.
Yeah. It's gambling, literally. Like just pure gambling almost, and it's not health. It's healthy for the scene in the short term. It's not in the long term.
Yeah.
But as so long as these investors keep on coming, it's good. But once they end up, oh, that's gonna be a shithole.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's like LCS. I believe that LCS is the most notable example because they have the largest investors, so they
I
are
agree.
allowed.
China has the largest investors.
Sorry,
China has the largest investors. and I
China.
don't think
Oh yeah. Okay, so China is a whole other world. Okay, so LCS everyone knows about. So they have very large investors, so that they can postpone this kind of crash happening for a very long time. Then China has a mixed problem, being that they're very large investors for the top half teams, and then the bottom half teams are more or less like Poland, that they're like flipping rookies, trying to form them and leaving by selling them to higher teams.
Yeah, but it's the same issue that occurred in the LDL in the second league of China that would have happened in ERL system if it wasn't the case for being so split apart, being so basically in China in the LDL, in lower leagues you would develop players, but a lot of teams would match fix in order to gain money, because otherwise it's not sustainable. It's not. I mean, it's no point in investing that much into it. You know, you don't have that much money. You want to make some money out of it. The top Chinese teams lose money, but they don't care. They just don't care to lose so little money to them. That it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, it's
They
like
lower
teams
teams.
are
Yeah,
literally some rich guy's son's toy.
yeah. Chinese teams are toys mostly. But yeah, ERL systems don't work like that simply because the don't go into match fixing, or haven't gone into match fixing yet. God forbid they do. Because there are still ways to kind of get into LEC, and then the split of the leagues also helps with that. The fact that there's different nationalities inside Europe, it's harder to communicate and to match fix properly. So that's why match fixing is not happening as often in ERLs, even though it's a bit of a doom situation just like LDL, because of this. But in China, LDL was cancelled until they fixed the match fixing issues.
Yeah, and I don't know about fixed because they banned a handful of people.
Ewots will come back. These guys will come in as shadows. Same thing, but if they don't attack the rule set, the security, or something else inside the league.
Rypsee, thank you very much for being with me. I think this was the related to the time that we've talked. I think this was the most productive conversation of my last 10 years.
Thank you as well for inviting me.
Okay.
I don't know how to go, assuming what you told me about just having some fun drinking and then
Indeed.
ranting around. But I guess it was indeed quite nice to be able to talk about these issues. It was about esports. It was.
Indeed. It was more about esports than it was about alcohol. That it was not our initial plan, but I think it turned out fine. So that said, goodbye to everyone, and see you, I don't know, to the next time I feel like picking up a bottle. Bye bye.
See you lads. Bye bye.